Howdy, folks. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Murph. In this edition of Storytime, we are going to be listening to episode 4 of The Lands. That's part of chapter 1, Something is Happening, and it's part 4 of that. Before we get to it, though, let's discuss a little bit about what's happened previously in The Lands. First, we have the professor who has decided that he doesn't want to finish the work on the Orbitron, on Director Jacalian's baby and Techland's ultimate weapon. And after this strange experience where he believes the spirit says it agrees with him, he decides to leave. So he sneaks away by exiting through a hidden door under his computer desk. Where's he going? I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Captain Marley is passed out in the pub in Pirate's Lair when he gets a visit from Mouse. And Marley still can't figure out what happened while he was having one of his reoccurring nightmares when he couldn't breathe. And let's see what happens there. Maddog has been playing Hold'em in River's Edge Terrace when he and Doc Moran had an extremely strange experience. So they talk about it outside. And Maddog realizes that maybe he failed Mahone and didn't keep the spirit alive. And Drake, of course, taking care of business, stops two guys from being able to take Maddog back to Gonzo. Finally, we have Mitch, who was sent to Merchant Valley to get Captain Hobogon after Victor and Tom found him, Ava, and Peter passed out in Hubland. Now, what could be so urgent that they would send Mitch off to get the good captain? I don't know. Guess we'll find out. Certainly seems like something is happening in the lands. So let's get back to it and see what's going on. A 1 and a 2, and away we go. Hello, and welcome to the lands. Episode 4, Chapter 1, Something is Happening, Part 4. This episode's quote, "Never in all my years have I seen the likes of this." Captain Hobogon. As Maddog and Doc Moran entered the casino, Maddog noticed immediately that Big O and Lady Fuller were standing next to the table, and there were two different players sitting in their seats. "Where do you think you two are going?" Maddog asked. "It's getting late, and we need to get back to the Western Territories," Lady Fuller said. "O opens the horseshoe early." "Come on," Maddog whined. "There's still more Oldham to play." "Looks like there's a couple of suckers waiting for you, Maddog," Big O whispered, motioning to the two guys who were now sitting in their seats. "Your night's not done."
"But I suppose mine is," Doc Moran said.
"What? You too?"
Maddog was none too happy.
"Big Owen and Lady Fuller are my ride. If I want to get home, I better leave with them."
"Unless you want to take him back to the Western Territories, Maddog," Big O said with a smirk.
"Mama's boy,"
Maddog replied. "Well, it was good seeing y'all. Take care of yourselves." "Looking forward to the day I see you at the horseshoe again, Maddog," Lady Fuller said with a big smile. "I wish you would settle things with Gonzo. I miss the good old days." Maddog nodded as he thought about what Lady Fuller had said.
"We all do,"
Doc Moran spoke up.
"It's called nostalgia. Wishing for the things of the past. But the future will give us more to be nostalgic about."
Doc Moran finished with an out-of-breath laugh. Finally, the dealer spoke up. "Sir, we're about to start dealing. Are you in this hand?" "I'll holler at ya," Maddog said as he gave Big O and Lady Fuller and Doc Moran a nod and headed to his seat. "Take care of yourself," Lady Fuller replied and flashed Maddog another smile. They headed to the exit of the casino when Big O turned around and said, "And don't worry, Maddog, we never saw you." Maddog gave him a wave, and they left. He was happy he got to spend some time with them and appreciated Big O's departing comment. Now it was time to get serious. He looked around the table to take in the changes. Sarge was still sitting to his right. Sal was still in his spot. Then there was an empty chair, and finally 2 new faces, older gentlemen. Maddog had played with them before. He just didn't know them. "Hello," he said to the 2 new guys. "Hi, Maddog," one of them replied. "Didn't know you were at this table. I guess we'll contribute to your retirement account." Everyone laughed. Catman had taken Doc Moran's seat. "I see you wanted to get closer to me, Catman," Maddog remarked. "Did you want to sit on my lap?" They all laughed. "I do," Sarge answered. "Yeah, Maddog replied. "Okay, enough talk. Deal 'em up," he said to the dealer, smacking the ring on his right hand on the table, making a loud bang. The dealer looked at Catman, who smiled and shook his head. Then Catman nodded. But before the dealer could start dealing, Maddog put his hand out. "Hold on a second. I smell fresh meat," he whispered to the dealer. Just then a young man was brought over to the table by the young hostess. "Mind if I sit in?" the young man asked. "You got money?" Maddog asked. "Sure," the young man answered, producing some cash. "You play much?" Maddog then asked. My buddies and I play in the backyard," he said. "Then sit yourself down and let's get started," Maddog said with a sly smile. The young man sat down and looked around the table as the cards were being dealt. He stopped at Maddog, and his eyes got wide. "Hey, you're Maddog!" he yelled in excitement. "Geez, calm down, goofy," Maddog said as he looked at his cards. "Man, I can't believe I'm playing cards with you. I idolized you in the Gang of Five." "Well, idolize them to yourself," Maddog said. "We're here to play Hold'em." "Can I ask you a question?" the young man asked. "Are you writing a book?" Maddog asked. Sal let out a laugh, which made Maddog laugh. Then Maddog, Sarge, Catman, and Sal all said together, "If so, leave this chapter out." The sliver of a moon did nothing to light the dark sky, which was an advantage to the figure that was creeping along the side of the big white mountain. He knew that if he could just make it across to what appeared to be some sort of raceway, he would be free. For, waiting on the far side of that raceway, was a group with a horse, and that horse was his fast pass out. He looked up the face of the big white mountain. The guards were keeping a close watch on the land that lay around the mountain. After all, they had taken it from its rightful owners, and one never knew if, or when, the owners might come back for it, although that seemed highly unlikely. There was a feeling of invincibility with its new owners. Nobody would dare mess with them. The corporation had transformed a land of past technology into one of future technology. They would soon be the most feared of all the lands. Nothing will stop them. Or at least that's what the director told everyone. The figure inched his way from the mountain. He was a tall, thin man, and so he was able to slip right into a crevice on the side of the big white mountain. He ran his hands through his long, thinning red hair. The time had come. If he didn't make a go for it now, all the hard work of so many people would be for nothing. He looked up. The guards were looking out in the distance. They weren't looking for someone who wanted to leave Techland, only attack it. So off he went, running as quick as he could, not even looking over his shoulder. It wasn't very far, and there were plenty of bushes around the raceway. He just had to get there without being seen. He ran, dove over a railing and into some shrubs, then listened. Nothing. They hadn't seen him. He took a deep breath, but then realized why they didn't see him. High up in the sky were 2 colored flares, a red one followed by a blue one. He knew what those flares meant, and why wouldn't he, since he was the one who developed them? A sinking feeling came to him. He hoped that had nothing to do with him, but he couldn't sit there and think about it. There was no time to lose. He looked at his watch. "Oh, man," he exclaimed to himself. He zigzagged his way through the bushes, over the dilapidated roadways, and to the railroad tracks. Before he knew it, he had come upon the group. There were no hellos or how are you, no pleasantries at all. He was handed the reins of a horse and hoisted up. A person walked up to him, gave him some water in an envelope, with a map and instructions inside, then softly whispered, "Spirit be with you." Then, with a single escort, he rode off, not even looking back. The group quickly assembled itself and began its own journey. "Captain, we must return fire!" a shipmate screamed as cannonballs flew all around. "Hold your fire!" Captain Marley yelled, eyeballing the approaching enemy ship. "Are you trying to kill us?" exclaimed another shipmate. Captain Marley just stared ahead, his eyes as sharp as his mind. There was no alcohol in his system to distort his thinking. He knew what he was doing. He just needed to wait for the approaching ship to get a little closer. His first mate came running over to him and got right in his face. "You may be suicidal, but the rest of us want to live," the first mate yelled. "Is that what ye want, matey? To live? Or is what ye want to be captain?" Captain Marley looked at the boat they were coming alongside of. Cannonballs were flying overhead, and the pirates on the ship across from them were beginning to shoot their pistols. "Marley!" his first mate yelled, but his voice was that of a lady. Captain Marley stepped back. "Marley!" the first mate yelled again with a stern feminine voice. "There be something wrong with you, matey," Captain Marley said as his first mate's face slowly changed into the face of Marguerite. Marguerite was standing at Captain Marley's table, hands on her hips, as he slowly opened one of his bloodshot eyes. "Marley," she said rather sternly, "Shane is here for you. Get yourself out of your booth." Captain Marley still had his hand clutched on the full pint that was on his table. He looked at it, then back at her. "I think you've had enough, dearie," she said as she removed the pint. "And what was all this stuff you were talking about earlier? You had me worried." Captain Marley licked his lips and tried to recall what she was talking about. "Don't remember," he said. "Well, maybe a good night's sleep will clear your memory," she said. As she spoke, he began to remember bits and pieces of what had happened, and how he couldn't breathe. He then remembered seeing Mouse. He looked up at Marguerite. "I believe something may be happening," he said. "Whatever does that mean? Here in the pirate's lair, something is always happening." "No," he said abruptly while trying to stand. "I believe something is happening." There was something odd about the way he was talking. She had never heard him be so serious. She helped stabilize him. He looked into her eyes. "You're so beautiful, Marguerite." "Okay, there it is," she said. That was more like him. "Time for you to get..." He staggered towards the door, but then came to a stop. He looked around. It seemed to Marguerite that he was about to say something, but he stopped himself. He looked at her, then turned and headed out the door. When he got outside, he stood up against the door. "Something is happening," he said as he passed out and fell to the ground. Director Jacqueline was passed out at his desk, his head leaned back in his chair, his cigar still lit and dangling just above the floor in his right hand. "Oh, yes," he mumbled. "Fire away. See what it can do." He smiled as his eyes darted around under his eyelids. Suddenly there was a pounding on his office door. It scared him so much he jumped out of his chair, flinging his cigar across the room. "Ah, jeez!" he exclaimed as he went for it. More pounding on his office door. "Hey, who's there?" he yelled as he retrieved his cigar and put it in his mouth. He looked at it, realizing it wasn't lit. "It's Dr. Stacey," the voice from the other side said. Come on in, Chief," he said as he went over to his desk. As she walked in, he pointed at her. "This better be important. I was hard at work." He went to his seat and sat down. "I believe this is very important, Director Jacqueline. Very important," she yelled as she produced an envelope. "Oh, wow, okay. Calm down, Chief." She slammed the envelope down on his desk. "What is this?" he asked, picking it up. Did you win a Spirit Award? Dr. Stacey leaned over the desk. Director, that is a letter from the professor who states he has left Techland. Director Jacalian just stared at Dr. Stacey. Say again? The professor has left Techland. Director Jacalian waved his hands in the air. Dr. Stacey, what the heck are you talking about, tough guy? I just saw him a couple hours ago. We have been at a standstill on the project, and I couldn't sleep, Dr. Stacey said as she walked in circles remembering the events. So I went to the lab to work some stuff out, and I found this letter. Probably didn't think I would find it until morning. He thanked me for my hard work, which I really appreciated, she said softly. Director Jacalian rolled his eyes. Dr. Stacey turned and looked at the director. Then, he said, he had to leave because he couldn't morally finish the project. Director Jacalian slammed his hands on the desk. He what? He can't leave. He threw a cigar across the room, then took a deep breath. He raised the letter and finished reading it. He placed it down on his desk and walked over to his cigar. He picked it up, examined it, and put it in his mouth. He tried to take a couple of puffs and then realized it wasn't lit. He closed his eyes in frustration, took a deep breath, and walked over to his desk. He was trying to remain calm, but he was totally irritated. Dr. Stacey, please contact Commander Kerr immediately, he said calmly. Then he lost all control. And tell her to find the professor, he yelled as he crumbled his cigar. Yes, sir, Dr. Stacey responded, shrinking back a little. Then, as an afterthought, she said to him, should we tell Agent Clayton? Oh, no, the director exclaimed, throwing his ruined cigar away and walking around the room. Get Commander Kerr on this. But Agent Clayton, he might be able to use... No, the director cut her off. I don't want to have to listen to him go on and on and on with his stupidity. Get moving, Chief. Check the professor's office, his house, everywhere. Maybe he hasn't gotten far. Just go! Dr. Stacey ran out of his office. Director Jacalian removed another cigar from a box on his desk. He sniffed it, then put it in his mouth. He looked out the window to a giant contraption that was all lit up. He chewed on the cigar and took it out of his mouth, staring at the contraption. Stinking professor. The man with the eye patch sat upon his horse, all bundled up to stay warm, hidden in the shadows. The dimly lit area was a perfect place for him to hide. He had a disappointed look on his face. He'd been waiting long enough, and it was obvious that the person he was waiting for wasn't going to show. He feared the flares he had seen in the sky earlier may have put a damper on his plans, and those fears may have come true. He waited just a moment longer, but to no avail. He spurred his horse and left for the comfort of his warm room in the castle. Captain Hobogon steered his horse towards a group of soldiers who were waiting for him. The captain was not a very big man. He had a chubby face that was topped with thinning, oily, and black curly hair. He had a concerned look, but there was also a bit of confusion in that look. Riding next to Captain Hobogon was Mitch, and another 6 soldiers were behind him, each with a torch fastened to their horses to give light in the darkness. Victor and Peter saw the captain approaching and headed towards him. Peter was limping and breathing heavily and was holding a bandage to the back of his head. Captain Hobogon, Peter said, saluting as he walked towards him. Peter, the captain responded, returning a salute. What do we have going on here? There appears to be a young man passed out in the hubland, Peter answered, slurring his words. Peter, you called us out here for a young man who probably drank too much while watching Lily perform last night and decided to sleep it off in Hubland? Well, sir, Victor chimed in, looking at Peter with some concern. It's kind of more than that. I think you should come take a look. Captain Hobogon scratched the top of his head with his index finger, then patted down his thinning curly hair. He looked up at the dark sky, the sliver of a moon barely giving any light. Something seemed odd tonight, and he just couldn't figure out what it was. "Sarge!" he called out. One of the soldiers behind him rode up to the captain and whispered, "She's off tonight, Captain." The captain nodded in acknowledgement. Something is happening tonight," Captain Hobogon mumbled. "I can feel it in my bones." "Okay, soldiers, lead me to this young man." Peter and Victor turned and began walking towards the group, who were gathered in front of the statue. Victor walked alongside of Captain Hobogon. "Captain, you should know that there was some sort of incident here," Victor said. "Ava was badly hurt and is being taken to the hospital." "Did the young man attack them before he passed out?" Victor looked at Mitch. Peter didn't turn around. I'm not sure what happened," Mitch answered. "Well, how can that be, young man?" the captain said, not too happy with the answer. "Were you coherent at the time?" Yes, sir," Mitch said. "It just happened so very fast." "Soldier," the captain said, coming to a stop. "A member of the Neutral Lands Army must always be prepared for anything. Were you prepared or preoccupied at the time of the incident?" Mitch thought for a moment. "I don't know." "Never in all my years," Captain Hobogon said. "Sarge!" She's off today," Mitch responded. "Captain," Victor said, getting Captain Hobogon's attention, "there's a good chance the young soldier has a concussion. Tom and I found all three of them unconscious." The captain looked at Mitch with concern. "I could diagnose you if you would like. I do have extensive medical training." Mitch wasn't sure how to respond. "I'll have him report to the medics right now, Captain," Victor said. I expect your report in the morning, soldier," Captain Hobogon ordered to Mitch. Aye, sir," Mitch answered, then saluted the captain. Victor gave Mitch a nod, and Mitch headed back slowly towards Merchant Valley. The captain shook his head and began to move again. Victor walked up beside Peter. "Did you tell him?" Peter asked in a mumble. "No," Victor answered. Let him see it for himself." Peter and Victor began walking towards Hubland, with Captain Hobogon and the others following. Hubland was the center of the Neutral Lands, and the Neutral Lands was nothing more than dirt for as far as the eye could see. In the center of Hubland was a statue atop a large brick base. It used to be the center of all their celebrations, but now it sits as a centerpiece to a land of dust and dirt. As Captain Hobogon approached Hubland, he got sad. It used to be such a beautiful place. It was the center of the lands, and he missed that. "Victor," he called out. Victor slowed, and Captain Hobogon came up beside him. "Remember what it used to be like here? How beautiful it was?" "Yes, sir," Victor answered. "All the big celebrations we would have. Boy, oh boy, I miss those days." "As do I, Captain." They got closer to the group of soldiers gathered in front of the statue. "Captain, I think you should know—" "Soldiers!" Captain Hobogon called out. "Is there nothing to do in the Neutral Lands tonight?" No one answered. In fact, besides turning and looking at him, no one did anything. "What is going on here?" Captain Hobogon asked. No one answered. He stopped, got off his horse, and walked towards a group of soldiers. As Captain Hobogon approached them, they moved out of the way and saluted him. However, Captain Hobogon did not return the salute. He came to an abrupt stop. Peter came from behind and grabbed his arm. "Sir," started Peter, "this was not here. Mitch and I had just patrolled around the base, and this was not here." "That's not possible," the captain said. "Absolutely true, Captain," Peter said. "I swear it. There was nothing here." Captain Hobogon gave Peter a good long stare. Something told him that Peter was telling the truth, but it made no sense. "Go get yourself checked out, Peter," Captain Hobogon said while patting him on his shoulder. He looked at the ground in front of the statue, scratched the top of his head with his middle finger, then he examined the dark sky. "Is he alive?" Captain Hobogon asked the two soldiers. Well," Victor said. The two looked at each other. "We never checked." Captain Hobogon shook his head. He grabbed a torch from one of the soldiers and walked towards the base of the statue. As he slowly approached it, his feet went from walking on dirt to walking on lush green grass. He moved his torch towards the lifeless body, which was face down in a patch of beautiful green grass. "How is this possible?" Captain Hobogon asked. "Never in all my years have I seen the lights of this."
Thank you for visiting the land. We hope you come visit us again soon. What? What the? How in the? Why is that guy passed out in Hubland? Why does everyone seem so stunned by it? Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait till the next episode to find out. A few little tidbits about this episode. There's a scene in it that was actually the third scene in the original story. And here we are in episode 4, and it shows up. I've talked a lot about the original short story and how it started out as something small and has grown and grown and grown. Well, there's a scene from it. So it's still scattered about, but, it's definitely gotten a lot bigger. Just goes to show you how a story can grow from just a simple idea. Does it grow for the better? I don't know. That's a great question. And hopefully I get to hear from some of you what you think about it, But I'll tell you one thing that can happen. It can cause delays. But anyways, that's a different story. There's one particular scene in this last episode where kind of drove me crazy a little bit. It was the scene with Director Jacalian and Dr. Stacey, and she comes to tell him that, that the professor has left. And what cracks me up about it, first of all, is, she was trying to warn him the whole time, and he was just ignoring her. And then when it finally does happen, he won't admit he did something wrong. But in the recording of that scene, I kept mixing up the director and doctor. So I would call Director Jacalian Dr. Jacalian, and Dr. Stacey, I'd call her Director Stacey. And, it's one of those things I just could not get right. It was driving me crazy. This beard was dark, when I started this, and this is what happens when things like that happen. Most of it I caught, and then, of course, the magic of editing fixed some of the ones that slipped by. But, yeah, that's some of the crazy stuff that can happen when you're doing this. We got to meet a few more citizens of the land. We met Adam, the young man who sat down at the table only to find out that he was going to get to play Hold'em with one of his idols. We also met briefly the man on the horse with the eye patch, and wonder if he'll come into play later on. You didn't get to see him, but we heard that Shane came and got Captain Marley. And then, you got to meet Captain Hobogon, commander of the Neutral Land Army. So we'll see what he can do and what he finds out about the young man laying in the green grass in Hubland. But before we go, I have a little message here from Marguerite's, from the Pirate's Lair. See what Marguerite has to say. If you want to keep joining us here in the land, be sure to subscribe and allow for notifications. If you like what you hear, hit like and let us know. And don't keep your comments to yourselves. Let us know what you're thinking by commenting. We want to hear from you. And come back and see us again real soon. Thank you, Marguerites. Appreciate that. Yep. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit allowing to get notifications. Like us if you like us. Comment if you want to comment. I look forward to hearing from you, and definitely look forward to having you join us again. I want to thank you for listening to episode 4, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again, hearing from me again real soon. So take care and keep the spirit alive.